It is chaos in my workshop because 2 days ago in the morning I published my dowel maker video and I had lots of dowel makers to sell, I thought, but I sold out within 24 hours. Everything's gone. At least everything that I put online. I've got a few more that I'm holding back because it's good to have a few in reserve. And yesterday I took 40 packages to the post office, and here I've got another 14 packages. And then this row is the last one here, so I've got all lined up with the entire contents, plus the shipping label, plus the packing slip. And before I package these up, I take a photograph so that if some package has the wrong stuff in it and somebody complains, I can actually verify that, yes indeed, that's what I put in there. And things I've learned are like how to assemble one of these shipping boxes quickly, and how to put on the sticky tape without having it stick to things that you don't want it to stick to or tearing it. And I really fumbled with this roll of packing tape, and I realized I need a tape dispenser, but I didn't want to take the time to go and buy one. So here's my rigged up tape dispenser. This is just clamped to a vise. Piece of metal here. Now I don't have a sharp enough edge on here for it to start tearing on its own, so I always have to start to tear with a knife, and then it tears cleanly. But it's not perfect because like this, the tape is hanging there in tension, and it always comes off of here eventually. So I have to make sure the tape is detensioned. So on a proper tape dispenser, this is on a roll so that it doesn't go back and forth like that. Things you learn about tape dispensers that you never thought of. And these here are the last of my orders, and they're all for the 5/16 inch dowel maker because that's the one I ran out of stock last. And that is not ideal because my shipping effort is the same whether I'm sending a small item or a bunch of items. So really, I need to make sure I have the right mixture of items that run out at the same time, so I don't get all these itty bitty little orders of just one unit. So it's much more efficient for me and the customer if there's multiple items in the order. And this one, they ordered pretty much every item that I've got, and it's the only one that didn't fit in one box, so I'll have to tape those two boxes together. And that was actually one of my first orders, maybe the second or third order, but I held back on this one because I could tell from the order that the guy probably meant to order a 5/8 inch dowel maker as well, but just forgot it in the order. So I emailed him, didn't hear back from him for ages, and eventually I just decided I'm going to give him a free 5/8 inch dowel maker, but one with a cosmetic defect. Because even that way, it's still a better deal for me than sending individual 5/8 inch dowel makers, because that's a big order. And there was two orders. People ordered just a knife. It's like, why would you do that? But the first one, I saw the guy also ordered a whole bunch of other stuff, and I realized he ordered the wrong knife. So he ordered that separately. So I just canceled that order and put the correct knife in his order. The other one that just ordered a knife, I don't know. I canceled that order and I just emailed the guy. It's like, I'm sure you meant to order something else because the knife on its own is pretty useless. But yeah, shipping is really annoying. Basically, the effort of shipping two packages is comparable to making one 5/16 inch dowel maker. So it's a substantial cost to me, and I meant to add a shipping surcharge, but I forgot to add that. I think I will add that next time because I had no idea just how much work goes into shipping packages. And I've got lots of dowel shavings here because as I ship these, every one of them I test, and so I've been whittling down these dowels with the dowel makers, and this bin here is my rejects for now. These need to be reworked and whatnot because I've gotten tighter with my tolerances since I made especially the 3/8 inch batch. So when I test them before I ship them, some of these I'm like, nope, not good enough. Needs to be reworked. So I'm holding these back, but that was by design. So the inventory I posted that I have is actually less than I do have because I knew I wasn't going to ship every single one of those. Now this one here is another one of my rejects because it's got a crack in the body. The wood was already cracked. And another thing I realized recently is these knives are actually asymmetrical with respect to their thickness. So they're all 0.6 millimeters thick, but I discovered if I put the knife in this way, or I flip it over, it cuts differently. It's possibly as much as 2 thou off center in terms of the edge with respect to the knife's thickness. And I'm thinking to people that make these knives, it's like, who would have ever thought that somebody would care whether the cutting edge is exactly in the center of the knife? It's like, it's just not something that they ever worried about. And in terms of visual inspection, like, it's impossible to tell that the edge is off center. The only way I discovered this is because I tested it and I flipped over the knife and it's like, oh, that makes as much difference as a shim of about, say, 4 thou sometimes. And then the other thing I discovered, I used to think you can't bend these blades, but the ones I got here this one is bendable. So I thought, oh no, this is not as hard as the other blades, but I just basically jammed the edge of this one against some of my other blades, and it made the same size dent in the edge. So I think this one is just hardened more towards the edge, whereas the other ones, the whole blade is hardened. So this is possibly an improvement, having them so they're actually slightly bendable. So I could change the design to require a bigger bend, but I'd rather not, because basically just forcing it into that cavity is just much more elegant. It's more repeatable and all that. And they do get forced into that cavity with quite a bit of force. The washer here actually deflects quite a bit, and that's part of the design. And it seems a lot of people out there have got 3D printers and almost like take offense that I'm not using 3D printing for it, because it's like, hey, I bought this do everything machine. What are you telling me that I can't do that with it? Because I'd like to just print my own dowel maker, but plastic is totally unsuitable for that. Because with this constant force on there, deflecting the washer and all that, I'm not sure if the plastic would creep or not. And the other problem is potential abuse. Look at this dowel maker. See the cavity inside? Blackened. Why? Because that one I tested, how hard can I go? And wood just blackens a little bit, but is fine with the temperature. In fact, it makes it smoother. It's always slightly better if it's blackened a bit, whereas plastic would just melt and be ruined. And then the next problem is just consistency, because where the knife is with respect to the cavity, that is super critical. And if people print these things willy-nilly on their 3D printers with different settings, you could be off by a few thou, and your dowel maker might not work all that well. Because a lot of people are like, why don't you just sell STL files for these things and then I can print my own? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Plastic is just not suitable. But that's assuming I could even make an STL file or whatever, some kind of 3D printing file, and they all require some kind of watertight mesh, and I'm not even making that. So in this one, you can see there's a body here and the washer here and a knife here, but I don't even care about that. Those are just for decoration. So what I really care about, what this CAD model is about, is these three surfaces. So this is the washer cavity, which is only drawn partially because I don't need to mill part of it that overlaps with the knife cavity. This is the knife cavity. Notice how the washer cavity actually overlaps with where the knife is supposed to be because the washer flexes. And this is the funnel that things go into, and this funnel is actually not even drawn to full depth because my milling machine can only reach this far into it, and I have to actually drill out the rest of it because the bit is only this long. And there's also a few stray line segments here, and those are basically just manually drawn tool paths. So this one here is for milling the funnel. I just touched the tool off the surface, so I know if the tool is drifted, it'll leave a mark there. And that's a witness mark for the top. Also kind of adds a slight start of a chamfer here to the edge. And this one here is dipping a tool in a little bit, just marks where I need to drill the hole for the screw for the washer, because that hole is too small, so it's faster to just drill it with a drill than to switch tools. Oh, but you could still use 3D printing for quick and cheap prototypes. But no, it's neither quick nor cheap, because I got my milling time on these dowel makers down to about 5 minutes for a 3/8 inch one. So I can iterate really fast, and like my iterations are, it's like, okay, I gotta move this by 0.05 millimeters and try again. And sometimes if I just need to mill a bit deeper, I can just put the thing back in and only mill one surface. So a lot faster than 3D printing. And cheap? Well, I use pieces of firewood for some of my prototypes, so that is a heck of a lot cheaper than filament. So no, 3D printing is slow and expensive, especially because I need to do solid infill because of the strength requirements. So despite my tool drifting issues that I've had with the Carrera, I'm actually pretty happy with its performance. And for a while I was tempted to maybe get a second one because that way I could produce them faster, because the machining time is a factor, but I've realized since then just the manual steps of production, I can barely keep up with the Carrera. Although it would be nice maybe to have a second one just to have different setups on different machines. So, you know, just like people have print farms, you could have yourself a Carrera farm as opposed to having like one big milling machine. So yeah, pretty cool approach, and you learn a lot more about manufacturing than just pushing print on a 3D printer. Now, a rather barbaric solution some machinists suggested to me with regard to the tool drift issue is to just put a little bit of super glue into the collet here to get the tool stuck, and that way it doesn't drift out. Now that guy was using ER20 collets like this one here, and these are not that expensive, whereas the Carrera collets are specific to the machine, so you can't just buy those cheaply. And Carrera emailed me, and they were actually not unhappy with my video, and they are going to send me some collets and some of their new bits that they just came out with so I can try those out. because they want to see the thing how it does in, you know, production being kind of driven to its limits. And so I am going to try the super glue solution on the extra collet that I will have, because I read up on it just a bit. The machinist guy said you just release it with a bit of heat because the glue doesn't hold up to that, and you can get rid of super glue residue just with basically solvents like acetone. So I'm not going to ruin the collet by super gluing the bit into it, and then maybe I don't have to worry about even checking for drift anymore. But I should point out the drift didn't used to be a problem. Like for the longest time I didn't even have to think about it. I think it's just I may have worn a collet smooth by just hitting it too hard and having my bit spin in there a bit, especially because I let it drift quite so far because I didn't realize what was happening. So I'm hoping that problem will be solved. And I've been using my homemade dust collector, which at about 400 millimeters worth of head in terms of suction is just barely strong enough to clear chips through this relatively thin hose that kind of snakes around here. I wish this hose was a little bit thicker. That would help a lot. But I think Carvera's idea is that you'd hook this up to a shop vac, which would have way more suction than that, so this small hose isn't a problem. Carvera is also sending me their new dust collector that goes with the Carvera Air, which with a 40,000 RPM blower should have enough suction, and it also is quieter and turns on automatically with the machine. That'll be nice. But you most certainly wouldn't want to use a Carvera with this thing here, because these things have a smaller diameter rotor, so much less suction, especially if you're in Europe, because the motors spin 20% slower because you're running on 50 hertz instead of 60 hertz. So these things just don't have a lot of suction. They're fine for like a short run to one machine, like to this table saw here. But in terms of running it through a cyclone or sucking things out of a Carvera, not enough suction. And now I'm going to have to put the labels on here and get these ready to take to the post office before it's 3 o'clock, because that's when the pickup for international happens. So just to get this out a day earlier. And that is actually fairly time consuming. You'll just cut off the packing list and fold that up there, put the product in there, put the padding in there, check it over, close it up, cut the shipping label to the right size, tape it on there, and struggle with the packing tape. Takes 3 minutes per box. And that finishes my last batch, and that just barely fits in my backpack, which means I can bike it down to the post office, because it's downhill to the post office, so it's faster than by car. Well, I got it too close on account of filming this video, because I got there about 2 minutes before 3 o'clock, but it takes the lady about 15 seconds to punch in the numbers for each package, and the guy came at exactly 3 o'clock, so he only took half the packages. The rest of the 20 odd packages is just going to have to wait until the next day to get picked up, so they'll arrive a day later. And you might be wondering, when will I get my dowel maker? Well, before opening the store, I ran test buys to 2 friends in California and Oregon just to make sure the whole tariff filing and custom stuff worked. And based on that, at least half of you should get your dowel makers by Friday, May 28th. But for some of them, I actually didn't select the air shipping because I didn't realize until later on. It's like, oh, tracking is free, but that's, you give up the air freight. So some of you, it'll take 12 business days, and adding a business day for margin, especially because I didn't hit the cutoff date on Friday. You should all get your dowel makers by at least June 10th. So if you don't get it by June 10th, email me because the package may have been lost. So when will I have more dowel makers to buy? Well, I'm keen on getting back to making more and working on process improvements, but there's also 2 sponsored videos I've promised, plus there's this other thing I've been playing around with where using a Raspberry Pi and just a few passive components, I can read analog voltages, and then I start programming a scope program for that, and just got down the rabbit hole, and I'm kind of keen on getting back to that too. So we'll see. I think there should be enough time to make more before we get into the summer travel season.